Hi and welcome to this video where I'll be looking at the Modal Electronics Cobalt8 and asking why on earth would anyone release a hardware-based virtual analog synth in 2021? The world's moved on, hasn't it? With ever more powerful VSTs like Diva, the excellent new TAL JP8 and many others that seem to have nailed the characteristics and the tiny quirks and imperfections that contribute to the sound of analog synthesis. And if you want real analog, well, there's never been a time where you've had more choice. Roland System 8 uses their plug-out system, and users know that the code running in the System 8 hardware can be replicated on their computers and sound swapped from hardware to software and vice versa. Many users love that ability, but detractors will often describe virtual analog as a VST in an expensive box. So why would Modal Electronics, a British company with a pedigree in making fine analog synths like their flagship Modal 008, make a virtual analog when you could either buy the real thing or a VST emulation? Modal's Cobalt8 series of synths are billed as extended virtual analog on their attractive blue casings. So rather than a review of the Cobalt range, I'll be concentrating on the features that differentiate the Cobalt from traditional analog synthesis and how the Cobalt series integrate into a VST environment. So here's the little Cobalt8M. And if you're going to put a virtual analog in a box, you may as well make it a good-looking and a functional box. With a metal construction and that great blue finish, there's no doubting the Cobalt is an attractive synth that's pleasing to the eye while sat on the desktop. But beauty in design is more than skin deep. The sculpted rear of the unit allows you to fit the Cobalt8 into 3U of 19-inch rack, with the provided rack ears, though you may need some 90-degree connectors. The front panel is well thought out, and as any user of hardware will tell you, the use of knobs when creating or tweaking sounds is much superior to footling around with a mouse while tweaking a VST. The layout is well thought out, and although a compact design, the knobs are spaced sufficiently apart so you needn't worry about catching neighbouring knobs inadvertently. Modal have also made clever use of a lot of the encoders. Those that have an LED above them have a push switch, so if we use the envelopes as an example, by pushing the correct encoder, we can switch from the filter ADSR to the amp ADSR and then finally to the mod envelope generator, all quick and logical. Thanks to this layout, the vast majority of sound creation tasks can be achieved from the front panel. But Modal have also provided the Modal App, which works on Mac, iOS and Android. The app is not only a complete editor but also a full librarian. So patch organisation is a breeze, and you may well find that you prefer the visualizations when assigning modulation routings and working out the effect of the algorithms on the oscillators. So with all that in mind, let's use the app to do just that. As I said before, this isn't a full review or a collection of sound demos. You'll find lots of them on the net. This is a look at what Modal calls extended virtual analog and how that differs from the traditional approach that we're all familiar with. The area where this is most apparent is in the oscillators. There are 2 independent oscillator groups, and depending on which algorithm is selected, there can be up to 4 oscillators per group. To keep things simple, everything is controlled by only 1 pair of encoders per group, which are the most appropriate for the relevant algorithm. Let's have a look at some of the algorithms, but keep in mind there are 34 unique algorithms including sync and ring mod, so I'll only be scratching the surface. So let's have a listen to those oscillators. I've selected the sound Cobalt horns, and so that you can hear them clearly, I'm going to mute the reverb, switch that off, and the chorus, and the delay, just so that you can hear them naked, effectively. So I'll put the mix up to fully right, so we're listening to the second oscillator, and what's going on? There's a little bit of a rise in pitch. If I go to the modulation tab, you'll see there's a rise and fall in pitch to give it that sort of brass sound. And I'm just going to change the release of that amp envelope to give me a sort of a slower release sound. Right, okay. And you'll notice that we're in the spread saw algorithm. So, but actually no spread is being applied. You're listening to a single oscillator there. Obviously the filter is opening and closing based on the filter envelope, but what you're hearing there is the raw sound of 1 oscillator. So if I introduce the spread, combination of weight and the spread will give it that sort of multi-oscillator sound. If you take it beyond the 64, it then starts to add different pitches, so it's a way of getting effectively getting more oscillators out of one single oscillator. So as you you'll see you also have a little bit of room to detune as well between those frequencies, but let's just listen to a single one. And so there it is in isolation. We're now introducing a little bit more spread, and of course we can bring in the other oscillator as well. For a bigger sound. So we now have multiple oscillators for a good rich sound. This is just algorithm 1, which is the spread saw. Let's have a look at one or two of the others. You might be familiar with something similar to the VA sweep in other instruments. If we're going from a sawtooth there, a sine wave to gradually to a sawtooth, and then to a square wave, and adjusting the width of the square wave. That's using the VA sweep algorithm. Let's have a look at crushed, and you'll see the effect. If I bring up the crush, you'll visibly see what it's doing to the waveform. If we have a listen to it. This is PWM triangle square. Get an effect similar to wavetables, where the adjustments that you make to the waveform itself, they of course can be modulated. So we can assign the A or the B parameter to a modulation slot. So let's quickly do that again. If I select LFO1 and I go to oscillator 1, you can see that parameter is now assigned to that value. Unfortunately it doesn't animate, or it doesn't seem to animate, but that allows you to get sort of wavetable type effect sounds where the waveform is moving between the values depending on the modulation that you've assigned to it. Another feature seldom found is that you can modulate the effects parameters. So if I now take, let's have a look at the effects parameters. In FX2 slot, there's a ping pong delay. Let's try adjusting the time value of the ping pong delay using an LFO. So if I go to here, there's a spare slot here. Let's call up LFO1, and we'll call up FX value, the second slot, and it's the second value along, which is B. And now this is the patch randomizer, but now we can, and it gets its name from the modulation, random modulation from LFO1. Well, let's apply that random modulation now to the effects, the time of the ping pong delay by introducing some modulation to the delay time. Similarly, you could adjust the feedback or the amount, something that makes more perhaps more musical sense than this example does, but there's lots of room for experimentation there. The filter offers a few options that aren't run-of-the-mill too. The 4-pole filter is capable and convincing, if a little polite. The resonance sounds part of the filter, unlike some modelled analog filters where resonance can sound like an effect on top of the filter. There's also a balanced low-pass filter which helps retain low-end frequencies when increasing resonance. The morph control morphs the 4-pole low-pass through bandpass to a 1-pole low-pass. Another interesting filter is the balanced phase, a dual-notch filter where morph controls the width and depth of the notches. An aspect of the Cobalt8 that I feel is most relevant when working with VSTs is that the entire front panel can also be used as a MIDI controller for your VST instruments. Each controller sends MIDI CC values, even those with multiple functions like the envelope generators. They can send different values depending on the mode that you select. In this example, I'm controlling the filter ADSR of the TAL JP8, which I've set to control as 22 to 25, and by merely pushing the AMP-EG encoder, I'm now sending controllers 26 to 29 and controlling the AMP ADSR. This is a really great feature, and it's crazy useful to be able to control all your plugins from a single control panel like this. Once you've mapped your plugins to the Cobalt, imagine how easy it is to know precisely which controls affect your filters, envelopes and LFOs of your different VSTs all at a glance. So in summary, I think the sound of the Cobalt8 can be thought of as extended virtual analog, with new sonic territories to explore thanks to the various oscillator algorithms. The front panel doubles up as quite a comprehensive MIDI controller, and in many ways is superior to a dedicated one once you've set up your VSTs to work with it. I find the Cobalt810 to be a compelling piece of equipment, and in my studio I find its small footprint easy to accommodate. The keyboard options are reasonably priced, with Fatar keybeds offering a good action and feel, and they come equipped with aftertouch, putting some dearer Roland and Yamaha synths to shame, and I'm thinking System 8 and Modi X here. Well done, Modal. So, does the Cobalt8 fit into your studio or music making plans in the 21st century? When you make that decision, keep in mind that the Cobalt offers a best of both worlds approach, with the immediacy of its front panel layout and the convenience and precision editing of the Modal App. The Modal App is also available as a VST3 plugin for Windows and Mac, so it even integrates with your DAW. I haven't even mentioned the sequencer, the arpeggiator, the drift control that mimics the drift of analog oscillators. Oh yes, and it's MPE compatible too. A 21st century virtual analog. Thanks for watching. Please share and subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video.